Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Ross Crystal UpFront. UpFront today, S.E. Cupp, the host of a program that focuses on one of the most watched and talked about political races in the country, talking about the New York mayoral contest. S.E.'s been a political commentator and an outspoken voice for years and knows the terrain very well. And we thank you so much for taking the time out. We really appreciate it.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Let me begin by asking you about the program, Battleground New York City, NYC. How did this come about, and what's the aim of the show?
So we had a show called Battleground over the course of the 2024 election, and we shot it in a swing state at Philly Fox 29, and it was laser focused on the 7 swing states that ultimately decided the election. And that was a really, really fun way to cover a political election. And I'd covered so many, but not like that. On the ground, talking to reporters in all of these swing states and talking to voters about the issues that mattered, as opposed to in a cable news studio in DC or New York. So the thought for this mayoral race was to do the same, was to do a show where we're talking to the reporters who are on the ground in every borough, in every neighborhood, canvassing voters and talking to voters about the issues and really just talk about what's mattering to them and why they're leaning to this candidate or another candidate. And so that's what we're doing. We're doing it every night until the election because everyone's talking about this race. And so it's, there's never a drought of things to talk about.
Not only is everybody talking about this race in New York, they're talking about this race out here on the West Coast in Los
Everywhere.
Angeles, everywhere. What
Everywhere.
what has captivated the whole country on this one New York City race?
Yeah, for both parties, there's an interest in nationalizing this election, and it's different for Democrats than it is Republicans, but for Democrats, they're looking at someone like Zoran Mamdani, a 33-year-old, untested, inexperienced Democratic socialist, and his appeal in a city like New York, which is liberal, but it's not like Portland liberal. Um, and they're thinking, gosh, if he can captivate voters in New York City, maybe we do have permission in some places to run more progressive candidates. That flies kind of counter to some other arguments inside the party that are saying the Democrats need to moderate and move back to the middle to capture those voters that have been leaving. But so they're watching this to see what is possible in a place like New York City. Now, Republicans want to nationalize it because Zoran Mamdani, like I said, as a Democratic socialist, is a great foil. They want Zoran Mamdani to be the face of the Democratic Party, especially as we head into the midterms. So that's why you're hearing President Trump wants to weigh in on the election. We talk to reporters in DC all the time who say, it's all anyone here is talking about. So you're right. It's the thing that everyone's looking at. It's not an election year. So in an off year, it's a thing that's captivating everyone because our attention's not divided. But yeah, it's all anyone wants to talk about.
Now, I'm a kid from the city. I grew up in New York, always talking to friends, family, worked in
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. for a dozen years. And I keep hearing this from various people, depends on who's supporting who. But there is a faction that are scared. They're worried. What happens? What happens if a Democrat socialist wins? New York will never be the same. What's your take on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a middle ground between this is all fun and exciting and the world's going to end, right? I think folks are rightly nervous about the word socialism, but beneath that are actual policy proposals that don't sound reasonable or right to a lot of people, like government-run grocery stores, like free buses. I'm sure that sounds great to some people, but to others, they're like, well, how does that get paid for? We just had on an independent candidate, Joseph Hernandez, who comes from a socialist country. He escaped Cuba with his parents, and he was talking about the dangers of socialism. But listen, we've talked to a lot of people who said the voters who are captivated by Zoran Mamdani aren't even all that interested in whether he can do the things he's talking about doing. They're responding to a hope and change message
Mm-hmm.
and an authenticity that endears him to people who, are just sick of the same old, and they're sick of the runaround from politicians telling you, I'm a change candidate, and then they get in and it's more of the same.
Is there a difference in the campaigning now? It seems to me there is from afar, but you're smack in the midst of it. Is it there a difference in the campaigning, both uh, on the streets and in the media that you see?
Do you mean from the primary to now, or just
Yeah.
in this general?
Just in the whole general, from the
Yeah.
primary through now, leading through the election.
It's really interesting because, and we had this conversation with an academic on the show the other day. Zohran Mamdani's done something interesting, and this is not good news for the Democratic Party. He said, "I'm going to go with the Democratic Socialist Party, where has roots, and I'm going to ask them to help me with their infrastructure, their ground game, their resources, their grassroots, because the Democratic Party doesn't do much anymore, and they're
Mhm.
not able to help me pound the pavement, do the calls, knock on doors." And so he's gone to a real old school kind of grassroots politicking strategy. And he's combining that with a modern social media campaign too. And that's all working for him. Andrew Cuomo, I think, learned early on that the sort of rose garden strategy he'd been doing, I'll let everyone come to me, was not going to work. And so we're seeing him start to pound the pavement and be a bit more visible. So yeah, it's an interesting microcosm of a campaign. And New York City is a unique town, as you know, but Mamdani's successful right now because he's doing old school campaign stuff.
You plan on having all the candidates on?
All are invited, of course. We've had Curtis Lewa, we had Joseph
No.
Hernandez, we have another independent coming on um in a week. So yeah, we're waiting on Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, and Zohran Mamdani, but we'd love to have them all on, of course. And this isn't like a debate, screamy gotcha show. It's a straight interview. Tell me what's your plan? Talk about these issues. Um, so it's a nice environment, I would think, to come on and talk directly to voters with the reach of Fox 5 New York, which is, one of New Yorkers' favorite news channels.
When I was hosting my show down in Washington, D.C. back in the 80s, um, we were a noontime show that a lot of politics. Curtis Lewa with the red beret was on my program countless times.
Yeah.
And he's still doing the same act, but he's matured. What's his percentage on this? Where do you view him? He's running on the Republican ticket, which is not
Yes.
what's going to happen in New York. But what's he doing? Why is he
Well,
in this?
listen, I lived in New York for almost 15 years under two Republican mayors. It's not impossible. And
That's
New
true.
Yorkers have, yeah,
Yeah.
New Yorkers have elected Republicans before. Um, but you're right. I mean, it's a town where Democratic voters outweigh Republican voters 8 to 1. But I know Curtis a long time too, because I'm a New Yorker. He's a New
Yeah.
York fixture.
Yeah.
And he would come on, I was on Fox at the time. He would come on Fox all the time. And he's a character. But I just interviewed him. And let me tell you, Ross, he sounded serious. He had granular policy proposals for affordability, for crime, for Rikers, for um, he wants to do something with pet adoption and pet safety. I mean, he's got a lot of real policy proposals. And let me tell you, a New Yorker knows a New Yorker. Okay. When
This is
I'm,
true.
yeah, when I'm listening to him and he's talking about going into this neighborhood or that neighborhood and he's diagnosing the problems correctly, this is a man who's been to every neighborhood, every borough, maybe even every block of New York City with the Guardian Angels. That's not something every candidate has, this institutional knowledge of a city that he loves. So I found him very compelling,
Hmm.
and he was a much more serious, he's still a character, but a much more serious Curtis Lewin than I've heard in the past.
Your take with Cuomo. I'm a kid from Queens. A lot of people coming out of Queens. Why is he not doing what Mamdani is doing? Why is he not circulating throughout the streets of the five boroughs, the subways, the bodegas?
Yeah.
What is it, from your take, why he is so, if you will, rose gardenish on this?
He didn't think he had to. He's been a governor. The plan was not to run for mayor. The plan was to run for president.
It's
And
true.
then his world came falling down on him through those sexual harassment scandals and the nursing home scandal during COVID. So this was not the place he thought he'd be. And maybe he thought, my name ID is big enough. He's not wrong, that I don't need to introduce myself to every New Yorker. He does carry a very high name ID. He also carries very high unfavorables. And so, that's a combo he's got to reconcile with. But we're seeing him be a bit more visible. We're seeing him turn up his social media profile, right? And he's getting a little sort of attacky and aggressive with Mamdani. I think his appeal is with older New York voters, Black New York voters, working class New York City voters. These are voters who have known him and his political family
Hmm.
for decades. They might not care about the recent-ish scandals that a lot of younger and newer New York City voters do.
You mentioned social media. Mamdani has been all over it. How much will social media play in the upcoming New York City election? How important is it?
I think huge. New York City is a giant metropolis. You cannot be everywhere. You cannot, it's not Iowa where you can go to all 99 count, you can't be everywhere. Social media is the best tool a savvy politician has today to really introduce yourself. And if you're authentic,
Hmm.
like Mamdani seems to be, people are really drawn to his charm, his authenticity. You can really use that to your advantage. And it's funny, I was up at my alma mater, Cornell, in the spring. I was teaching a politics class,
Hmm.
and we had students show campaign videos from any decade they wanted as either evidence of something that's really effective or not really effective. And so we got the Daisy ad, we got all kinds of ads. One kid showed a Zoran Mamdani ad that was wacky. I mean, Ross, I looked at it as a political professional. This was probably in March. He wasn't polling high. I looked at that and I said, that's like the worst ad I've ever seen. This kid was like, I love it. I love this
There you
ad.
go.
And
Yeah.
he was the person meant to see that ad. That ad wasn't for me. That isn't for you know, a working mom, in the suburbs. That ad was for a young kid who got its appeal and its shtick. And so he's really tuned in to that. At 33, what they like to say is that is his native language. He speaks it fluently. Other folks like Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, it's a second language and they're not fluent in it. And it shows.
If he's got a sharp campaign manager, both of them, Adams, Cuomo, they're going to say you're getting out there, or you're going to lose. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the way, but this has got to be a fascinating thing. You mentioned Cornell for any student in politics, public affairs. This is just an interesting time right there locally.
Yeah.
Forget about nationally. That's another
Yeah.
story altogether. But there are those people, no way Mamdani wins. There are those people. He's the next mayor of the city of New York. You had John Avalon on your show recently,
Mhm.
and he had a really good point. Between the primaries and now, 10% is what Mamdani got, he said. He's right. That changes when we get to the big election. In your
Yeah.
view, how does that change?
Yeah. An eighth of New York City's voting population
Hmm.
turned out for the primary election. He won half of that. So a 16th. So a 16th of the city of New York gave them their imprimatur,
Yeah.
gave Mamdani their imprimatur. That's not overwhelming, but he's leading in the polls. He's doing really well. He's got all the momentum. Cuomo is struggling with those bad approval numbers. Eric Adams is struggling with corruption scandal after scandal and bad
Mm.
headline after bad headline. So, Zoran's got everything he needs right now. If he keeps going with this momentum, he's really bringing in new voters, which is not something every political candidate even efforts. You know how it goes. They
Hmm.
they go to those older, reliable voters, people they know are going to vote every election cycle. It's not young folks. So he's bringing in younger voters, he's bringing in Asian voters, he's getting voters that no other candidate thought to get. So he's in a good position. Now there's 3 months more of
Hmm.
this. Anything can happen in 3 months. And there's a possibility that as Zoran Mamdani has to answer more questions about his policies, his stance on policing, his stance on subsidizing groceries and buses and whatnot, that people like what he says a little less. But he's really holding the cards right now, and everyone else is just trying to kind of climb up to where he's at.
As you progress with Battleground NYC, you're doing, and by the way, we're in a completely different world. I get to that with the YouTube generation, streaming generation. Um, by the way, is that better or not better? Is it better to be in the streaming because everybody can be everywhere right now? Is that better than when you entered this business? You really entered it in basic cable and legacy media.
I
Uh,
did, and I won't say better or worse. I'll say it's different. I'm adapting, right? I'm learning about the new normal of streaming and cord cutting. And I'll be honest, it was very disorienting at first, and you know, um, disruptive. This idea that there's no more such thing as appointment television, or how do you know when to find me or where I'll be? It doesn't matter. You can find me anytime you want, and people know how to do it, and we're all kind of catching up in this new media landscape. It offers a lot more opportunities,
mhm.
but it's challenging to produce news for whenever you want to listen to it, right? It's challenging knowing we're not just on at 7 p.m. talking about everything that's happened before 7 p.m. We're on whenever. So it's tricky to wrap your arms around, but we get to reach more people this way, and that's the point.
We're also able to get on a platform on the same level in many instances as the big boys and girls.
Mhm.
YouTube is everybody equal, very much so.
Yes, that comes with some dangerous side effects,
Yeah,
but
what's the
yes, I mean
dangers? What's
it's
the dangers?
democratized news production and consumption, which is great. Social media did the same thing in a way that was great, but without standards, editors, producers, lawyers, it can be tricky. Because I grew up in legacy media with all of that apparatus around me, I'm
Me too.
used to double sourcing and
Yep.
relying on that infrastructure and those standards. For folks coming in just now, I worry about them not knowing journalism standards, best practices, libel law, defamation law. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you learn um, through doing it. And, without all of the trappings of legacy media, it's a whole new frontier. And so we're all kind of just figuring it out as we go.
You just gave me both sides, the pluses and the minuses, and
Yeah.
there are those. Now, back to what I was getting at, and that is Battleground NYC. You've got the YouTube platform. You usually record day of show and air it that day. You plan on
Yep.
doing anything live on there? Like
Yeah. We
bring
will be
the
live.
audience in, bring the audience in, do a
Yes.
town hall kind of back and forth.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, we're using a new technology platform, and so we're figuring that out, and that's why we're taping now, same day, but taping. We aim to go live and then use in platform functions where you can read guest comments, viewer comments in real time and respond in real time. To have voter town halls is something we're going to do as well. We did that back with the original Battleground. So that's a crucial element of this whole project for us too. We're not talking at voters,
uh-huh.
we're talking with voters. And
And
so
can
we on our show air man on the street footage. Our producer goes out, she lives in New York City, and she runs around and asks voters for comments. So we do feature that now, but we are going to be adding those live components. It's
And to me,
crucial.
that live element adds that excitement
Oh,
and
always.
and it's
Yeah.
the frontier. We really are in this frontier of, we know what legacy media is doing and it's going kind of away. This
Yep.
is somewhat ex more than somewhat. It's exciting and where you're going and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And let me back up to where you started in this business. What brought you into politics to begin with? You began in on the commentator side. How did that happen?
Well, I was a writer and worked at the school newspaper at my college. And so I knew that's what I wanted to do in some capacity. I didn't
Hmm.
know um, exactly how, but I got a bunch of writing jobs when I left college. And eventually one at the New York Times, where I was for 8 years. During that time, though, 9/11 happens, and I get political. I get more political than I had ever been. I got patriotic. And I came up through center right politics. So I first wrote a book about conservatism in America, and Simon and Schuster published it, and then they put me on TV to promote it.
Wow.
And that's how everything kind of started. And all I cared about was writing jobs. But the TV made me visible and gave me a platform. And I kept getting invited back on to talk about the next news story and the next news story. And I found that the relationship was very symbiotic. It promoted my writing, it promoted, this little brand I was carving out. So I kept saying yes. And eventually, as you know, broadcast pays more than print. So it became the big job, but I
Hmm.
still write. I've had a weekly column at the New York Daily News that's nationally syndicated for 17 years now. I write that every week. I've written 2 books. I'm working on my third right now. So writing is in me. I have to do it to feel normal and okay. So I'll always do that. But yeah, broadcast and politics for that matter, that's not where I started out.
I was going to ask you, what are you at your core? Are you a broadcaster? Are you a politician? Are you a journalist? Or are you you're a writer at your core, aren't you?
I'm a writer, and
Oh,
I found a fun niche in politics called like opinion writing, and I'm an opinion host. I don't pretend to be unbiased. I use journalism to inform my opinion and tell these stories, but I'm an opinion journalist, and that's at my core. I'm not a novelist. I don't write fiction. Um, so yeah, I'm a journalist, but the writing part of it for me is what feels the most natural. Broadcast, radio, I've done it all, and it's fine. And it's an honor and a privilege to have a big visible platform at CNN or wherever else I've been.
hmm.
But it's not titillating, Like being on
Really?
TV is not titillating for me. It's when I see something I've done in print, that's titillating.
Why?
Oh, because I know how much work and care I put into choosing every word, right? It's a puzzle. I love the art of putting the word puzzle together. It's intentional. TV you get on and you kind of go, by the seat of your pants, at least for live news, and I can't always be as careful and intentional as I can be in a column. And so when I see that in print in a newspaper or a magazine or a book, that's just incredibly gratifying because I know I was intentional. Every word there is there on purpose. I can't say the same thing when I get on TV.
But you also appear to be, you're just not fearless when you get on TV. You're not, or you don't appear to be, unless you're quaking inside, you don't appear to be afraid to give that opinion with whoever it is. Where does that come from in you?
I don't know. It's a good question. I got asked this like the first time I did Fox News, I did Hannity 100 years ago, and I did the hit, and he was like, "Were you nervous? You didn't seem nervous."
No,
Because here's this like 28-year-old kid who should be nervous. And I wasn't. I don't. This doesn't affect me. Sometimes I don't even remember cameras are on. That part just doesn't affect me at all. And if it does, if it makes you nervous, you should not be in this business
no,
because
I'm not even talking about that part.
oh,
I'll give you
what?
CNN. When you come on there, you'll hit the left, you'll hit the right, you'll hit Scott
Oh, I
Jennings
mean,
and say,
that's
you
my
know, I
job.
agree with you, Scott, but not this time. And you're not afraid
Yeah,
to really go at it.
it's my job to put my hand on the hot stove. And it's exciting. Um, it comes with a lot of rewards, but it also comes with a lot of downside when you were the one putting your opinions out there and they're controversial about, issues people are super passionate about. That's not always fun and comfortable, but it's important. And I feel like I'd be doing the First Amendment a disservice if I didn't use it to the fullest.
But when you're about to give that opinion,
Hmm.
I'll use Scott Jennings as an example,
Yep.
and maybe you're not agreeing with him at all.
Yeah.
Um, Boy, if I say this, he is not going to be happy with me for a long while, and maybe
No,
never
no,
again.
no,
What makes you not hold back?
no. A, and maybe people don't understand this, I'm friends with Scott. I
Well, I
have
know that. Yeah,
relationships with
sure.
most people that you see me on TV with. And It's funny. I consulted for a show called The Newsroom, which used to air on um, HBO, and Aaron Sorkin was the screenwriter for that show, and he, because I was a consultant, he
Great
would
show.
watch me on MSNBC where I had this panel show,
Right.
and I do a segment with one of my co-hosts, and we're kind of yelling at each other. And in the break, I get a text from Aaron, and he says, "What happened in the break?" And I said, "Oh, we talked about whether we were going to get sushi for lunch or pizza." Like, that's how it goes. We're
It's true.
professionals.
It's true.
We can turn it on and off. It's not not real. It's real in the moment, but we're also grown-ups. And what I've always said about doing a debate show or a panel show is the audience wants to know that mom and dad aren't getting divorced. They're fighting, they're in an argument, but they're not going to get divorced. And
Good
so
point.
I tried to convey that, you know, with Scott, with whomever is my adversary in the moment. Like, I like you, I respect you, we're friends, but I disagree completely and you sound crazy right now, But you build those relationships over time where you get to do that with trust.
I agree with him. But was the 5-year-old SC Cup that way? Were you fearless as a kid?
I was very confident and opinionated. I was an only child. Yeah, but yes. And in fact, my mom would say to me, "I think you're going to be a lawyer," because I liked to argue. But again, this isn't something I ever thought. This isn't where I thought I would be. On TV talking about politics is not what I thought I'd be doing.
How many times have you said to yourself when you're in the midst and watching in the commentary position, I can do it better than these men and women. I'm going to run. She's thought about it. Folks, she's thought about it.
It happens, Ross. It happens. Okay. Listen, I have great admiration, respect for all of my colleagues. But yeah, sometimes when you do this professionally, it's hard not to reach through the TV or, over to your friend over here and say, "Well, no, this is how you should say it," or "This is what I would have done. This is what I would have said." That's tough. But listen, I've got my spot and there's room for everyone, and I don't need to be any more places than I
What
am
would
right now.
it's hard question to answer, but I'll ask it. What would turn the tide on that? What would say, you know what? I want to jump in. I want to do that. It's not part of the portfolio yet, but I want to make that part of the bucket list.
Well, there are things I want to do. I want to produce television, and I develop TV shows outside of the news as well, but I wrote a sitcom set in a newsroom, and I wrote a pilot. That's something that I would love to do one day and not be on camera. So there are things I want to do in this space
What
that
about
are
what
different,
about
but
Cup for Congress? A Cup for
oh,
whatever?
never,
Never. Oh, that's what I was, oh, no.
never.
Why?
Oh, I'd be terrible at it. We can do better. Whoever we is, whether it's locally, state, we can do better than me. Um, it's not a job that I want. I don't want to lead stuff, and I don't want to tell people this is my vision for how you should live your life. And I that's just not what I'm best at. I'm where I should be.
Okay, a couple more questions before we get out of here. Um, I'll just say 3 words. Get your reaction. Texas, California, gerrymandering.
Yeah, the worst, right?
Yeah, what's your take on all of this now?
Well, who could have any take other than this is gross and this is why we hate politics? What other take is there? Who out there says this is great, guys? This is working awesomely. Nobody, nobody. This is infuriating to people. And yeah, it's legal and we get it, but like this is not how politics and our government and public service should be operating. And so I'm here for, I think Jamie Raskin has a bipartisan proposal right now for independent redistricting commissions. Take it out of the hands of the people who are going to benefit from it, and make this process a little bit more fair. I don't know. Something's got to change.
And finally, your hope for what this Battleground NYC turns into. beyond the elections.
Yes.
You liking you liking this hosting part? Because now you're the guest. But
Yeah.
you've gone from commentator to both commentator and
Yeah.
host. What can't you do? What can you do? What do you
Oh,
like
there's
better?
lots I can't do. I can't do math. But I've had the honor and pleasure of doing both. I've hosted many shows over my career, and I've been a guest. And I think I'm a better host than I am a guest. I think I'm better at asking questions, and putting together a good interview than I am at giving my opinion. And so I really enjoy this role at Battleground. I loved it. Last election cycle, I was thrilled they wanted to bring it back, and the hope is that we do something ramping up to the midterms and then 2028. I mean, I'd like to do this forever, because sitting in this seat for Battleground, asking questions, talking to reporters, I learn about my country
Mm.
in ways that you cannot do from a newsroom. I'm getting ears on the ground telling me what's going on all over New York right now, but last year, in Erie, PA, and Reno, Nevada, and Pima, Arizona. Like, that's invaluable for a journalist, and especially a political journalist. So I am loving it, and
Good.
I hope it goes forever.
Well, SE, some people are really good at hosting. Some people are really good at being the guest.
Yeah.
You are good at both.
Oh,
I'm telling you, you're good
thank
at
you.
both. And
Thank you.
I thank you for joining me today. It is Battleground NYC. It is on Fox 5 in New York. It streams daily at 7 p.m. Eastern. And they're going to try to figure out who's going to be the next mayor. Well, no, it's for you. It's for us to figure out who's going to
That's
be the
right.
next mayor of New York City.
It's
SC Cup,
exciting.
thank you very much. Look, I hope to do this again, and continued success to you.
Ross, thanks so much. This was a real honor. Thanks for chatting with me. I appreciate it.